E-L-O-E-J, a little aloha in our day. Spread a little aloha around the world. At breakfast with Bob.
Thank you, Poncho Man. Welcome everybody back to Breakfast with Bob, not quite Kona edition. My name is Bob Babbitt. We are brought to you by Hoka One One Master Spas, Clash Endurance, UCAN Hyper Ice, Premium Plus Sports, Form Smart Swim Goggles, and of course, our Challenged Athletes Foundation. We just sent out 3,038 grants totaling $5.1 million to keep challenged athletes in the game of life through sport. Our next guest, six-time Olympic gold medalist, 4 golds in the 1996 Atlanta Games on its own. The amazing Amy Van Dyken-Rouen joins us. Amy, how are you?
I am amazing. Aloha. I got to give you a shaka.
It is always such an honor to get to chat with you. And I want to go back a little bit. So growing up, was swimming your first sport?
I'm trying to think. It was one of my first sports, right? So I had started swimming. I was also on a soccer team, which didn't go well because allergies and asthma and all the things. I tried to be a gymnast also around the same time. And they were like, yeah, she's going to be tall. She can already hold on to the top uneven bar and touch the ground. So that wasn't going to work. And so, yeah, swimming was the other thing that I did all together. And it was awesome.
And it really helped you with your asthma, right?
Yeah, it really did. And a lot of people want to know why, right? Because the thing is with asthma, we feel like we cannot get air in, but it's actually, we cannot get the air out. So then it won't allow air in, if that makes any sense.
Yep, it does.
So with swimming, when your head is underwater, you've got to keep from getting water up your schnoodle. So you got to blow out the whole time, right? So it kind of helps get all that stuff out of the lungs and make your schnoodle work a little better.
So schnoodle, that's a technical term.
It truly is. Yes. My dog came in today. I was like, you've got dirt on your schnoodle. Have you been digging in my yard? He was like, no, Mom. But his schnoodle was dirty, Bob. We knew.
So you're trying to make sure that your schnoodle works, but eventually you found out you're pretty good at this sport. When did you realize that, okay, this is more than just a hobby? I'm going to be pretty good.
Probably my senior year in high school. I had qualified at our state championships for the 1992 Olympic trials, and I was getting scholarship offers from several schools. And I was like, I might actually be good at this. Bob, I'm slow. Like, I am not the smartest person. I'm not I'm not the sharpest crayon in the box. I am the most colorful.
Yes, you are.
It took me a minute to figure that out. But yeah, once I was a senior in high school, I was like, you know what? The goal is now to make the Olympic team.
And right away you realize, because I look, 50 free, 100 fly, that short distance, high intensity, that was you.
Exactly. I've got a lot of ATP running through my system. For a lot of people that don't know what that is, it's a fast acting thing that goes through your muscles, right? You hear you're either fast twitch or slow twitch. Fast twitch means you have a lot of ATP through your system. But Bob, once that ATP is gone, and it gives you about 30 seconds. So that's how my body works.
And so 92 Olympic trials, 4th in the 50 free. So you're just one spot from making the team. And at that point, did you transfer to Colorado State
I did. Yeah. So what ended up happening was right after Olympic trials in 92, I ended up getting mono and I could not go back to training, right? Because I was so sick. And the thing is with my asthma, I've got 3 types, right? So allergy induced, exercise induced, and then infection induced. So when I got mono, I could not breathe. So I'm in and out of the hospital. And at that time I was like, you know what? I don't know if swimming is going to be for me. I think I'm going to shut it down. I went to the U of A to swim. I'm going to be honest with you. They didn't have my major. And so I transferred to Colorado State and they had my major. Pardon me. So Colorado State had my major. My major was human development with an emphasis in infancy and childhood. I have a child psych minor. What I wanted to do was teach high school biology to deaf students because sign language was my second language. So that's what I went to school for. And I transferred to Colorado State, ran into the swim coach who was like, I didn't know you were swimming for me. I'm like, because I'm not. and he offered to pay for my full year, even if I just wanted to give him a semester. He's like, if you're not having fun, shut it down. I'll pay for your school. And again, Bob, not smart, but I can figure that out. That's good economics right there. So I gave him a semester, my first swim meet. I qualified for NCAAs, set my first American record. And I was like, you know what? This could be fun.
Well, in 94, you're NCAA Female Swimmer of the Year. So obviously you're doing the right stuff.
Yeah.
And then, so after college, you moved to the OTC to train full-time for 96 games. And when you're training full-time at OTC, then good things can happen, but it's so single-minded, but look what came out of that, right? 96 was just a year, the greatest year ever for you.
Well, yeah. I mean, I was the most decorated athlete, male or female.
Yeah.
I became the first American woman in any sport, summer, winter, to win 4 golds. So it's you can equate it to what Michael Phelps did, right?
Right.
I should get the same attention. I'm just saying, I'm kidding. I'm too old for that, Bob. But yeah, I mean, great things happen, but you're right. It is very single-minded. I mean, it is swimming and lifting and making sure you're eating right and making sure you're sleeping enough. It is all swimming. And I will say, obviously, I am thankful because it worked out well for me. You know, I feel for the people who make it their entire life and their goal that they wanted didn't happen.
Right.
Thankfully, mine did. I superseded my goal. But yeah, it was amazing. I'll tell you what, the OTC, you got to, if you have not toured it, you have got to go see it. It is so cool. And now that the Olympics committee and the Paralympic committee are together, you see all sorts of Paralympians running around. I've never seen so many wheelchairs, so many prosthetics. Like, it is just the coolest thing ever. And they're just mingling with the able-bodied athletes. Like, it's no big deal. Back in the day, that wouldn't have happened, Bob. So this is awesome. We live in a great time. I know that sounds weird.
So when I look at everything that came out, you win the 4 golds in one Olympics, ESPY Award, Female Athlete of the Year. You get inducted, Colorado Sports and US Olympic Hall of Fame, Associated Press Female Athlete of the Year, USOC Sports Woman of the Year, USA Swimming Swimmer of the Year, Women's Sports Foundation Woman of the Year, Glamour Magazine Top 10 Women of the Year, a Reed Award. So when all of that happens, it's like, okay, now what? Well, from 96 to 2000, how hard? Because now everybody's like, she's the best. She's going to dominate. You end up with a couple of shoulder surgeries, dealing with the ups and downs of that. How hard was that?
Oh, it was crazy, Bob. Like, I can't even tell you. I think 96, I was so fortunate, right? Nobody knew who I was. Nobody cared who I was. I'm not supposed to do anything great, right? So I have all the pressure off of me. Well, now like you said, the entire world is watching me. And so I start training again at the OTC and, having the goal of making 2000, showing off for a cute volleyball boy and blow my shoulder out, doing a lift that was just stupid. And I didn't think I was going to make it back to the games. So, my last surgery, I had 2 surgeries within that quadrennium. And my last surgery was 6 months away that Olympic trials start. And everyone, there's no way you're going to do that. Tell me what I can and can't do. Like, let's move on. Jumped back in the pool. I actually left the OTC, Bob. Went to Colorado State to train because I knew that John Matos at Colorado State, who was just an amazing human and a great coach, I knew he could get me ready in that short amount of time. And they acted like I was a failure. They were like, well, what happened? I'm like, what do you mean what happened? I won 2 gold medals. Like, what are you talking about? And they're like, ooh, yeah. I mean, last time you got 4. I'm like, do you think it's easy to do it? That what's happening here? Like, it's incredibly difficult to make the team, let alone get a medal and let alone get a gold medal. Yeah. So yeah, it was really weird, Bob. It was a really weird feeling. And it took me a while to kind of get over it.
I mean, yeah, you figure, okay, I won 4 in 96. I get 2. And the only medals you ever, it's not like bronze, silver. No, I'm not wasting my time with that. 6 medals, all of them gold. That's pretty freaking amazing. People would kill to make a finals, to make a team and get to whatever Olympic or Paralympic event it is. But for you, everything you did was gold. And to come back and after 2000, I bet you were expecting, okay, I should be getting some praise for getting 2 gold medals.
Yeah, I thought it was a big deal. I mean, I thought gold medals were huge. Apparently, Bob, not.
So it was then it was time to retire after 2000.
Yeah. And I knew Bob in Australia that my last race was my last race. Right. And so actually what I did was I got out on the pool deck and I stood there and I looked at the crowd. And as I stood there, Australians, they love their swimming. So everyone's standing up, cheering, applauding, because everyone knew this was it. I had made it very public. And NBC's trying to get me off the pool deck, and they finally do. And they're like, "What were you thinking?" And I'm like, "Well, that was the last time I'm ever going to hear applause for me. Like the next time I hear applause, it's not going to be for me. Like I wanted to soak it in." So yeah, it was a spectacular way to go out. The Australians are just amazing. They love their swimming and they understand their swimming. And it was really, really cool. It was a feeling I will never forget. And I will never regret standing there for as long as I did and shutting down the whole NBC broadcast for a few minutes.
My favorite was because we were there for the Sydney Games, and people don't understand in this country how big swimming is, right? I mean, the torpedo, the big posters everywhere you went, trying to get a ticket to swimming was ridiculous. It cost you like $600-700 to get into that arena. 19,000, I think that arena held. It was unbelievable. So now you're coming off of 2 golds, you're coming off this amazing swimming career, but you're still a young woman. What did you think you could replace the high of all of that, of the Olympics, with moving forward?
I thought being on live television might be a good idea. I mean, right? You get your adrenaline going. It's a fast-paced thing. So I had auditioned in Colorado I had done like a celebrity sportscaster day. And they hired me on the spot to go to the Salt Lake City Olympics with them. I was like, I remember my very first morning show, Bob. Yeah. I had never done live TV before, never hosted it, right? Like I've been on the other end.
Sure.
So they're like, all right, we're going in 10. And I'm like, going where? What am I supposed to do? So they threw me right into the fire. I was ready to go. It was amazing. I had the most fun ever. I just remember we were driving down in Deer Valley, the road from dinner, and we see this American bobsled team, and they're like in their bobsled and they're working on their starts. I'm like, let's go talk to them. Yeah. So we pull over. I end up getting in that bobsled. I ended up being able to drive it for a second. It was the coolest thing ever. And I knew that's what I was going to do for the remainder of my working career, was to be in media, because it was such a cool thing.
Well, and then you become a radio host, #1 ranked, 96.9, Phoenix with Chris Parker. And you guys, again, #1 ranked. Yep. And then do Fox Sports Radio with Rob Dibble.
Yep.
And I listen to that all the time. You guys were awesome together.
Thank you.
You know what? I love the fact that you're from a, sort of what people would call a minor sport, but you totally are a sports fan.
Yeah.
Because you knew baseball, you knew football, you knew basketball. So you had street cred. One, you got the gold medals, so your partners are looking at you and going, she's got street cred with me. And that came across to the audience, that you weren't some small sport person. You were somebody who had their respect and therefore deserved our respect. And you certainly were a great interviewer.
Oh, well, thank you. I appreciate that. It was really hard at that time. I was the only female voice on Fox Sports Radio as a host, right? Yeah. So we had Deb Carson, who was doing our news. But other than that, I was the only female voice that they heard on a long-term basis every single night. So it was amazing. It was so much fun. It took a while though to build up the cred with the audience, and once I did, it was just magical. And I still get tweets from people asking when Rob and I are going to do another radio show. And so, hey, who knows what the cards will hold in the future? He and I talk all the time. He's a dear friend. Podcast is a thing, but he's got a great radio show kicking some booty in Connecticut, but you never know. We may get back together.
So when did you and Dyken-Rouen meet?
Oh, Lord, have mercy, Lucy. Dyken-Rouen, I met that man back in 1998. It was a freak meeting. I had gone to the game that they had played that night, but I was dating a baseball player.
Oh, so you're going from baseball player to a punter. Nice.
I did. I went from a pitcher to a punter. So I'm like the guy that has all the pressure to the guy that has a lot of the pressure, not all the time. So right. It was funny, but yeah. So met him after that game. And I just remember talking to him for a few minutes. Baseball boy comes up and I looked at him and I go, hey dude, I don't play games. I just met this guy. I don't know what's going to happen, but I don't want to string you along. So there we go. And Tom ended up coming back out and talking to me and found out we lived across the street from each other, which was weird. So there we go. The rest is history. Been married 20 years at this point. And at this point, Bob, I feel like he's like my puppy who's behind me. Like I've trained him, right? I've trained him to use the doggy door and I've trained him to walk well on a leash. I don't have time to train another puppy. So I'm stuck with them, which is wonderful and magical and perfect.
So you're doing radio and everything is going great. And then all of a sudden life changes.
Yeah.
And you have that awful ATV crash. Talk a little bit about that and how how everything, so it's June 6, 2014. So how did your life change on that day?
Woo, Bob, it was a normal day, right? And everyone's going to tell you this story that has had an accident like this. It was just a normal day. I did everything normal. I went to CrossFit, right? Like I always did. And I did my very first and my very last ring muscle up. And I ran my very last mile. And I'm thankful that I did. And went home and had my day. And then it was time for dinner. And we went out to dinner. And the place was a quarter of a mile from our house.
Yeah.
But I didn't want to walk because I was wearing my big high heels, right? Don't want to walk that far. So, Tom jumped on his motorcycle. I jumped on my ATV like we always did, went and had dinner, and I had trout and steamed broccoli, which is a meal I will never forget and a meal I will never have again. It's not worth it.
Yeah.
So I remember, this is where it gets weird because I remember standing up and pushing in my chair and then my memory stops. I'm thankful for that because you have heard stories and I have heard stories about people who have had accidents and they remember everything and it's very traumatic. It's traumatic enough. I don't want to remember it.
Sure.
Tom normally would take off in front of me with his motorcycle. But this time something was wrong with his motorcycle. So he was kind of dilly-dinking with it. If he would have taken off in front of me, I wouldn't be here because he wouldn't have found me. I got on my ATV and he said that he looked up and was like, what is she doing? And there wasn't a scream, not a flicker of a brake light. And I hit a curb, just like you have a curb outside, and went over a 6-foot cliff. And he ran over and looked down and I was face down and he could see that my back was broken from that high up.
Oh my God.
So he got down there and saw I wasn't breathing. So he rolled me over and lifted up my neck and I started convulsing and my eyes went 2 different directions. And that happened for about 8 minutes.
Well, and it's funny because you never say when someone has an accident like that they're lucky, but you could have ruptured your aorta. You could have died right there.
Yeah, exactly. And if Tom would have given me chest compressions, I would not be here because if you take a hair off your head, split it in half, that's how far my vertebrae was from my aorta. So had I been moved weird, anything, I wouldn't be here. And I remember my neurosurgeon, who's a dear friend now, he's just an amazing person, telling me that we're going into surgery and he's going to get me out as best he can, just in case you got to say goodbye to your husband. And I did.
Wow.
Right.
Oh my God. So before you go under, basically you need to say goodbye because we don't know what's going to happen.
Yeah, exactly. And so I did. And I said, babe, I love you. And if I don't come out, I want you to be happy and I want you to date and I want you to get married and I want you to move on. And he got really close to me and whispered in my ear. He was like, babe, if it's too much, I understand and you can let go. And I remember going, dude, you don't know who I am, do you? I'll see you in a few hours. And there we are.
I read a quote after you left Craig Hospital that I'm a better person than before the injury. Why do you say that?
I believe that I was really jaded in the world. And I always bring this one up. It's a distinct memory that I have. And I'm not proud of it, but before my injury, I was coming out of a store and a gentleman was walking in and he just walked right through, right? Not a head bob, not a how's your day, not an eye contact, and not even a middle finger. So of course, in true Amy fashion, I said, you're welcome, Your Royal Highness. And next time you come, I'll roll out the red carpet for you. Right.
Yeah.
Well, after my accident, I had heard, we had 2 waiting rooms filled with friends, family, that Tom was sitting in a corner rocking. Right.
Yeah.
And I thought, what if Tom had to go somewhere and someone opened the door for him? He would not have the capability to look at them, to give them a head bob, to say thank you, or to give them the middle finger. He would have just had the ability to walk through that door.
Right.
If someone would have said to him what I said to that gentleman, I would have been horrified. So I learned from that moment that we are all dealing with something. And I need to give people a break. And I think I try to do that on a daily basis. And I truly think that because of that, I'm a better human being.
And sport wise, this is funny when we have one of our athletes who work with, Lauren Parker. She was a top triathlete, was paralyzed, and she moved right into paratriathlon. And I'm sure people said, well, Amy, there's the Paralympics. You can go swim in the Paralympics and dominate. But I remember reading swimming was your happy place, and swimming with your new body was not the same.
It was not. No. My happy place used to be going down to the bottom of the pool and looking up, right? It was quiet. You could hear the water rushing. I could think about anything. And then I would come up. Well, I can't do that now because from belly button down, I float, it's very different. So then you ask, well, what about swimming? So whenever I swim now, I used to have great hip rotation, side to side, and I could just move, and I can't do that now. And now when I get my body and my head in the right position and I start swimming, my feet are dangling and I see them. Right. And it's very upsetting for me. So in all honesty, it's really the only place that I feel paralyzed is in the water. I'm learning, I'm working on it, right? Because I can't go around the country and like give these speeches to people and be like, you can do it. And then I'm like, I'm not going to swim. So I'm working on it. I've gotten to the point, Bob, where I can float in the pool behind me with the dog swimming around me with a cocky tail, little umbrella and a straw. So you know what? We're making progress. And I think that's cool. And, I still do CrossFit, and part of the competitions is swimming. So right. That is forcing me to do that, which is amazing. And that's another reason why I love that sport.
Well, see, what's interesting is we work obviously with a lot of paralyzed athletes, getting them in the pool, which is their happy place, right? It's like they feel free. Because they don't have the background that you have. And we have a great, Alan Voisard is our coach who works with all of our paralyzed athletes and has flotation, different flotation things with wetsuits and with straps. It really helps, so for someone like yourself, you might want to work with someone like that. If again, you want to get back into swimming. But the main thing that you wanted to get back into was off-road. And just recently, through Lasher Sports, you got your off-road e-handcycle. And we actually had our buddy Petey out there filming, and I can't wait to see the piece he put together. That was out by Vegas just a few weeks ago. How fun was that, and how much did you love it?
Oh my gosh, Bob, I got to tell you, and I got to thank the Challenged Athletes Foundation. Like without you guys, that wouldn't have happened. And here's the thing. I was training for Ironman in Kona. And I also did some triathlons on mountain bike, like Xterra type things. Right. So if I was having a bad day after my injury, I pull into the garage and I go to get my chair out and I look on the wall and there's my road bike and my mountain bike. And I'm like, get rid of those things. And I would get so mad. Right. And I didn't realize how much I missed it. And you were talking about how people feel free in the water.
Yes.
Bob, I got on that bike a few weeks ago. I want to cry. It was amazing. I was free. That was the feeling that I wanted. That's the feeling that everybody gets. And I got it. And I am so thankful. And I cannot thank you. And I cannot thank Bill Lasher enough and his whole team and your whole team for what you gave me. I don't know if you understand. I don't emote very often. I don't know if you understand, I feel like you gave me a part of my life back that I have been missing for so long. And to be able to go out on the trails, right? And to navigate the rocks again, it was the most amazing feeling. And I love it so much. And now when I pull in my garage, when I'm having a bad day and I go to take my chair out and I see those bikes, I turn to the other side and I see Betty and I'm like, yes, girl, let's go. And I just jump on her and I ride, and it's amazing. So thank you so much. And I just had the best time in Vegas. I mean, those people are crazy and amazing and magical.
What people don't understand is that the off-road world, when you're paralyzed, pretty much disappears. Because you're in a wheelchair and you're just going on a little trail. Your hands are dirty. If there's any little rocks, you can't get over them. It's basically a world you can't get to. And what we're seeing through CAF is, I don't know if you've seen the Grit Freedom Chair, but it's something that gets people off-road. And then the greatest invention ever from Bill Lasher is the off-road e-handcycle. And obviously he's a guy who was an off-road guy before he was paralyzed, and he created this. And you saw the joy, not just from yourself, but from so many others. Just the fact that you need to have that that you have to have the e-assist just so that you have an insurance policy when you're out there.
Well, exactly. And so we don't ruin our shoulders, which are how we get around. Right. So it's so helpful. And Bob, I can't tell you, like, I live in Arizona part of the year, Colorado part of the year. Whenever I would have like a really bad day or something, or had to think through something, I would throw on my running shoes and I would go and I would run a few of the mountain trails.
Yes.
And that's what I would do. And I had lost that. And I remember we were in Vegas and this was the coolest thing ever. It was our last day of riding and we got to a part and we had to stop because we had to navigate, or the able bodies had to go ahead of us to kind of help us through things. And one of the girls that was there with us, she looked at all of us and she goes, "This is something that people in wheelchairs don't get to see. And we are seeing it." And it just spoke volumes. And it's so true. And it speaks to what you just said, right? Like we missed getting back on the trails, like behind the mountains and seeing nature. And it was just spectacular. It's amazing. It's so much fun. We got to go together because I have turned into a little bit of a recluse. I like the speed a little too much.
What a surprise.
Right. They were telling me to slow down when I go over certain things so I don't rip the bottom of the bike off. So yeah, it's just magical. And it is giving me something that I haven't seen in 7 years.
Now, is it something that Tom can go out on his mountain bike and you guys can go out together? So it's something that sort of bonds you guys together again?
Yeah, exactly. I remember when we first moved to Arizona, like Thanksgiving morning, we would always go on a mountain bike ride.
Yeah.
When we haven't done that. And so now, yes, he comes out with me. When we go on like an easier trail, he'll bring his e-bike because he's like, "You want to go forever. I can't do that anymore." So, he'll ride that. And he's got his mountain bike for when I want to, do a little rock climbing or whatever it is. So yes, we do that again as a family. And now the puppy can come into the mountains with me. It's just awesome.
I love it. So what's next? What's next for Amy?
Well, aside from riding Betty all the time, right? I've met up with a bunch of people here in Arizona that also are wheelchair athletes. They have their mountain bikes. So we're going to all go out together. I've got the CrossFit Open coming up in, I believe it's February. So fingers crossed that I make it to the games and that wheelchair athletes are in the games this year. We were 2 people short in the Open from being in the actual CrossFit Games last year. So I'm getting all the wheelies that I know. I don't care if you're a CrossFit athlete. We are getting wheelies in the games. So that's what I'm looking forward to now, and running around the country and speaking.
So in terms of CrossFit, that's something you were into before you were injured.
Yes. Yeah.
And we've seen the movement with adaptive CrossFit, and it's grown by leaps and bounds.
Yeah.
And how the CrossFit you did before and the CrossFit you did now, is it that different?
Oh, no, it's not. The only thing that's different is I don't do squats.
Right.
Hashtag not my leg day. But all the other movements are really the same, right? I mean, a lot of the barbell lifts, like the snatch and the clean, I can't use my hips, obviously, but I can rock my wheelchair back to kind of get that same feeling. So yeah, it's almost exactly the same stimulus, and it is so much fun. I go into classes with all able-bodied people. I'm like the only wheelie in there, and I give them a run for their money. It's fantastic. I always say, don't let the wheelie beat you. That's the rule.
It's so fun at the best weekend of try that we just had a couple of weeks ago. And we actually, between the bike ride and the triathlon, we raised $3.5 million.
Yes.
Yeah,
yes. I had some friends that were in some teams over there. I was so bummed that I couldn't.
Same weekend as Vegas. So we totally get it.
Right. But next year, I'm going to be there. It'll be awesome.
And we did a sport court. So having a little adaptive CrossFit demo with the amazing Amy Rouen might be sort of fun.
I think that would be spectacular. I think we could get more people involved in that sport and more able-bodied people going, "What? I didn't know they could do that."
Exactly. I love it. Amy, your personality is just so off the charts. I love it. It's an honor to have you part of the CAA family. It's an honor to really get to know you. I love what you bring. Your energy is just contagious. I love everything about you.
Oh, I love everything about you. And I'm so thankful that you are helping our people out. being able to have their dreams come back, be it being in the Paralympics or just being an old woman who wants to get out on a trail on a bike, right? So thank you so much for what you and CAF do. You guys are rock stars, and I'm going to be in your life forever, Bob. Warning. #warning.
Now, do you prefer Amy Van Dyken, Amy Van Dyken-Rouen? What works best for you?
Usually I go by Van Dyken. I never hyphenated my name until my injury. I was in ICU and I looked up and the Today Show was like, Amy Van Dyken-Rouen injured. I'm like, who would hyphenate that? That's ridiculous. I've never done that. Here's the rule of thumb I go by.
Okay.
When I'm doing anything like we're doing now, or anything sports related or speaking related, I am Amy Van Dyken. When I am in my normal world, making a reservation for a restaurant, airlines, I am Amy Rouen.
Okay.
I know it's confusing. I get confused sometimes too, but let's just say Van Dyken.
We'll go Van Dyken.
I love it.
Amy Van Dyken, thank you for joining us on Breakfast with Bob, Not Quite Kona edition. Such a treat. And hopefully we'll be doing more and more together.
I hope so, Bob. Thank you so much. Continued success. Shaka.
Thank you again. Breakfast with Bob, Not Quite Kona edition. Thank you everybody for tuning in. We'll catch you next time. See you, Amy.